Hello, friends. Every day, millions of people around the world start their morning with a cup of coffee. I often do the same. Some consider it a source of energy, while others see it as a dangerous drug. Some people can't even wake up in the morning without it now. And almost half of Russians admitted that they can't go a single day without coffee. But what do we actually know about coffee? It all starts with a small bean. There are two main types of coffee. The first is Arabica, the second is Robusta. Arabica has a milder taste, and Robusta contains about twice as much caffeine. And its taste is more bitter. But as you know, people drink coffee not so much for the taste, but for the energizing effect that caffeine has on the whole body. Take a bath, have a cup of coffee. At the same time, coffee is rich in potassium, magnesium, and B vitamins. Also, by the way, coffee contains thousands of antioxidants, including chlorogenic acid. It's a very powerful natural antioxidant. It is believed that 1 cup of black coffee contains the daily requirement of chlorogenic acid. According to legend, coffee comes from Ethiopia, from the Kaffa region. That's where the name coffee comes from. The energizing properties of coffee were discovered by a simple shepherd named Kaldi. He noticed that his goats became unusually energetic after eating red berries from a bush. Then Kaldi gathered the berries and took them to the nearest monastery. The abbot decided to try it out and prepared a special brew. However, the taste turned out to be too astringent, and the berries were thrown into the fire. That's when the monks smelled the enticing aroma of roasted beans. According to legend, that's how the first coffee drink was born. The monks began brewing coffee before long night prayers so they wouldn't fall into a deep sleep. Thus, for many centuries, coffee became a companion to religious rituals. From Ethiopia, coffee beans ended up in Yemen, where monks also used the drink to maintain their strength during long prayers. There, coffee began to be cultivated intentionally, with people caring for the trees and selecting only the best beans. Thus, in the Arab world, coffee gained the status of a valuable and almost sacred drink. It was enjoyed in the coffee houses of Mecca, Cairo, and Constantinople, accompanying leisurely conversations and business meetings. And gradually, coffee became an integral part of urban life. Coffee arrived in Europe in 1615 when Venetian merchants brought the first large shipments of beans. Then the drink quickly spread throughout the continent. At that time, coffee was considered a real healing remedy. It was prescribed for melancholy, for asthma, for gout, and even for scurvy. In England, coffee was even declared a cure for alcoholism. Coffee became so popular in Europe that at the end of the 17th century, the British King Charles II ordered all coffee houses to be closed. He called them gathering places for the opposition and hotbeds of conspiracy. Leaders of other major countries at the time followed the monarch's example, and in 1819, a German chemist. Friedrich Runge was the first to isolate caffeine. This is the main active component of coffee. This discovery made it possible to scientifically explain the invigorating properties of the drink, and it laid the foundation for the use of caffeine in pharmacology. I am a professor, doctor of science, head of departments, and I lead the oncology and gynecologic oncology departments at a federal center. At the same time, I've been building a very large brand my whole life. I've worked with vitamins for 8 years. And with great pride, I always show and talk about these vitamins. The factory is located in Dubna. And I shared with you what this production facility looks like. I'll probably insert this shot from the factory here. Originally, I made these vitamins for my own family. I truly find these vitamins incredible. I approach everything with great pride and responsibility, from the stage of selecting raw materials to production, packaging, and service. Every action reveals who we are. And I'm proud of it. And I don't want to advertise. I'll just leave links to these vitamins under this video. In my opinion, we have one of the best and largest brands in the country right now. And I'm especially proud that this brand was created, produced, and exists in our country. There have been many myths about coffee since ancient times. The first myth: coffee causes a drug-like addiction. Indeed, you've probably heard the term coffee addict more than once. But indeed, just like illegal substances, coffee affects the pleasure center and causes dependence. And when you abruptly stop after years of consumption, you can experience withdrawal symptoms. But you definitely can't compare it to drugs. The drink does not damage the body or mind, and quitting it is quite easy and doesn't have any consequences for the body. The second myth: coffee causes insomnia. With enough physical and mental activity, even drinking coffee won't prevent a good night's sleep. Why? Because coffee actually just masks your fatigue, and when the caffeine leaves your body, you'll end up sleeping anyway. The third myth: coffee contributes to the removal of nutrients from the body. But that's not entirely true, because the drink really does competitively interfere with the absorption of calcium and magnesium, but it doesn't remove them. And the same can be said about tea, but we don't demonize tea. The fourth myth. A myth that's quite rare, but still. They say that coffee has a positive effect on the body. Libido? Yes, indeed, you might think that since caffeine has a stimulating effect on the nervous system, including the nerve endings located in the sexual organs, you will have a stronger desire. But that's not the case, because desire depends on completely different things, and your desire for sex might only become more noticeable because your drowsiness goes away. Fifth myth. Coffee is an antidepressant. It depends on the individual characteristics of a person. If someone is prone to neuroses and mental disorders, coffee can even have a negative effect. And the thing is, a tired nervous system, the kind of nervous system that can't signal you properly because of coffee, unfortunately, may regulate itself even worse. And there's another myth that worries many women: cellulite from coffee. Let me reassure you, coffee has absolutely nothing to do with this problem. And in general, cellulite and everything around it is 99% nonsense most of the time. So how does caffeine actually work? It blocks adenosine. That's a neurotransmitter that signals the brain about fatigue. Caffeine also increases the amount of norepinephrine and dopamine, which improves mood and reaction speed. And by the way, it also enhances overall cognitive function. That's memory, attention, thinking, speech, and perception. Caffeine also increases the production of cortisol and adrenaline. Cortisol is the hormone of alertness. It's what helps us wake up in the morning. After waking up, its level is already high. That's why the best time for your first cup of coffee is about an hour after waking up, when your natural cortisol starts to decrease. And if you follow my social media, you can see that I drink my coffee at work, not at home. Adrenaline, in turn, prepares the body for physical activity. That's why coffee is considered helpful before a workout. Drink a cup half an hour before, and your endurance can really increase. But it's important to remember that adrenaline increases your heart rate, and people who don't exercise regularly are better off not taking the risk. Personally, I think that if you're tired, it's better not to work out. But the biggest problem is that people very often confuse tiredness with overtraining, and the most important thing is to be able to tell the difference. If you're tired, I don't recommend drinking a cup of coffee and heading to the gym, because honestly, such a workout will only do you harm. But here's an important point. If you drink coffee every day, you might develop a habit or even a dependence, both physical and psychological. Write in the comments if you consider yourself dependent on coffee. It can be the drink itself or the ritual in general. A lot of people, by the way, are even hooked on the ritual of making coffee. I make my own coffee at work using an espresso machine. Since adenosine receptors are constantly being blocked when you drink coffee, the brain creates new ones. Now, to get the usual energizing effect, you naturally need more caffeine. Tolerance develops quickly. It takes just 1-2 weeks of regular use. To reset your tolerance, you need to completely give up caffeine for 1-2 weeks. The first 2-3 days will be the hardest. You'll experience headaches, fatigue, and irritability, but after that, your sensitivity will recover, and 1 cup of coffee will start working like it used to. You don't need to increase the dose now and then. You need to take a break now and then. I published a book. It's called Genesis. I'm very proud of it. I spent a long time writing it. Like Gogol, I burned it several times, so to speak, and started over. And with great pride, I present to you a book that really can change your life for the better. This is a book that will help you become the best version of yourself. I'll leave a link to the book below this video. Despite all these difficulties, coffee has many proven beneficial properties. Let's start with the nervous system. Coffee reduces the risk of developing Alzheimer's and Parkinson's diseases. A large multi-center cohort study in the Netherlands, Finland, and Italy showed that coffee consumption is associated with slower progression of dementia. The most beneficial effect was observed in the group with moderate coffee consumption. This is considered to be up to 3 cups a day. Coffee, by the way, also protects the cardiovascular system. And studies claim that regular moderate coffee consumption will reduce the risk of developing cardiovascular diseases and, most importantly, strokes. Regular coffee consumption helps prevent fatty degeneration of the liver or fatty liver disease. Alcoholic cirrhosis too, by the way. And don't forget about hepatitis. Coffee reduces the risk of developing type 2 diabetes by almost 30%. It helps regulate blood vessels better, and insulin agents in the body work more effectively. And naturally, blood glucose levels are regulated better. And this is very important for your longevity. Coffee can also benefit those watching their weight. Caffeine increases the metabolic rate, according to some studies, by up to 10% within 3 hours after you drink it. By the way, coffee has antiseptic and antibacterial properties. Regular consumption of coffee helps remove toxins and bacteria from the body through urine. Also, by the way, it helps cleanse the stomach and protects it from infections. Coffee can reduce the risk of developing depression by 20%. It increases the production of dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine, which improve mood and prevent depressive disorders. And finally, coffee contains antioxidants that help prevent certain types of cancer, including breast cancer, liver cancer, colon cancer, and, by the way, rectal cancer as well. Coffee also has its own benefits for men. According to a large-scale survey by the American Urological Association, men who drink coffee are 40% less likely to experience erectile dysfunction compared to those who don't drink it. Coffee also reduces the risk of developing gout. This is an inflammatory form of arthritis that is more common in men due to very high levels of uric acid in their bodies. The powerful antioxidants in coffee help lower insulin and uric acid levels. Even in people already suffering from gout, drinking coffee can help relieve symptoms. Kidney stones are also more common in men. Drinking 1 or more cups of coffee daily helps remove excess sodium and calcium from the body through urine, reducing the risk of stone formation. That's why you should definitely drink several glasses of water after having coffee. Friends, I have social media accounts. They are absolutely free. There's a lot of useful information there. I'll leave the link to my social media below this video. Go check it out, subscribe, and benefit from it. Coffee also has a downside. It all comes down to the dose. Consuming a very large amount of caffeine can cause insomnia. It can also lead to nervousness, stomach upset, nausea, and vomiting. Your heart rate may increase, you may get a headache, feel anxious, experience ringing in your ears, and your hands may tremble, so I never drink a lot of coffee before surgery. Some people may even experience panic attacks. Doctors consider drinking more than 5 cups a day to be excessive. Such amounts cause a significant loss of calcium and magnesium from the body due to a strong diuretic effect. That's not really good because in the myth we said it doesn't cause loss, but here it does. But it all comes down to the dose. For people with cardiovascular diseases, caffeine, for example, is contraindicated. High doses, by the way, can cause tachycardia, increased blood pressure, and arrhythmia. There are situations when it's better not to drink coffee. If you have anxiety or panic attacks, you definitely shouldn't. If you have trouble sleeping, if it takes you more than 20 minutes to fall asleep, or if you wake up feeling exhausted, you should try cutting out coffee for 2 weeks, or at least limit your intake to no later than noon or 1 p.m. During high stress, when cortisol is elevated, coffee puts more strain on your adrenal glands. Also, avoid drinking coffee on an empty stomach. It can harm your gastrointestinal tract because it stimulates the production of hydrochloric acid, which, by the way, should only be released when you eat. You shouldn't mix coffee and alcohol, and you definitely shouldn't drink alcoholic energy drinks. Caffeine and other stimulants in energy drinks excite the nervous system, while ethanol acts as a depressant. This increases heart rate, provokes arrhythmia, raises blood pressure, and any other cardiovascular problems can get worse. Also, this combination masks the sedative effect of ethanol, creating a false sense of sobriety. There are even drinks that are consumed with coffee beans for the caffeine, by the way. For example, sambuca. People often follow it with coffee beans for the caffeine, which, as you know, is not healthy. All of this significantly increases the amount consumed and raises the risk of intoxication. However, if you drink coffee half an hour before consuming alcohol, it can be beneficial as the liver will be able to process ethanol faster because coffee stimulates the production of liver enzymes. So how can you drink coffee in a way that's good for your health? Everything is good in moderation? This applies to caffeine and even to water. A safe dose for a healthy person is 250 to 300 milligrams of caffeine per day. That's about 1 to 3 cups of coffee, each 100 to 150 milliliters. The optimal time for the first cup is 1 to 2 hours after waking up, when natural cortisol levels start to decrease. It's best to have your last cup no later than 2 in the afternoon, since the half-life of caffeine is about 5 to 6 hours. This means that 5 hours after a cup of coffee, half of the caffeine remains in your blood, and after 10 hours, a quarter remains. Caffeine after 2 in the afternoon can affect your sleep quality, even if you fall asleep normally. It shortens the deep sleep phase, and you might sleep for 8 hours but still wake up feeling unrested. Even if you can fall asleep after drinking coffee, you shouldn't do it. That's why we only drink coffee during the day. We always want to tell only the truth, to analyze things and to cite studies, but we have to remember that some studies, which we no longer mention today, were actually backed by the coffee lobby. That's why coffee is big money, and don't forget about that. And a huge number of positive effects often attributed to coffee drinks, unfortunately, turned out to be based on paid-for studies. So keep things in moderation and everything will be fine. But don't forget that you also consume caffeine in other drinks, for example, in Coca-Cola, and very often you don't count it either. It's important to monitor your daily caffeine intake. Take care and stay healthy.